Congress is heading towards, or threatening to head towards a compromise farm bill that would cut only $9 billion from the food stamp budget currently in place. And doctors are coming out and saying that this is one of the worst ideas that you could possibly implement if you have any kind of concern or care for nutrition or healthcare costs. Dr. Deborah Frank of the Boston Medical Center said, if you're interested in saving healthcare costs, the dumbest thing you can do is cut nutrition. People don't make the hunger-health connection. The SNAP currently covers 47 million Americans, but each person only gets approximately, on average, $1.40 per meal per person. Doctors and researchers are coming out against food insecurity, and they're saying that food insecurity increases health problems, especially health issues such as diabetes. In a 2013 study, it was estimated that the Republican budget cuts would increase the national health care costs by over $15 billion in the next decade. This would disproportionately affect Medicaid, of course, and poorer families. But a statistic that is consistent right now was shocking to me is that poor families going to the hospital from a severe drop in blood sugar or hypoglycemia rises each month by 27% at the end of each month when food stamps run out, when compared to the beginning of the month when food stamps are when the food stamp benefits are refilled. This trend is only present among poor people going to the hospital. It is not present among wealthier Americans. Many red states who are rejecting Medicaid expansion have it the worst and have the worst rates of diabetes and other health issues in the country. And if these cuts are implemented, that means more of them are going to be going to the hospital for situations like hypoglycemia and type 2 diabetes, which is the low blood sugar issue, which comes from insufficient nutrition. Do you think that they are actually going to pass this $9 billion cut? And, you know, how great is it that at least doctors and researchers are finally coming out in public and saying, this is a horrible idea, don't do this. And you're going to end up costing the country more in healthcare costs than you're going to be saving them by cutting these people's benefits.
Okay, so here's what the opinion of the doctors and the researchers are going to have on Congress. Dick. They don't care. See, this is the thing about, and I know this is like supposed to be this bipartisan thing. Like, well, we originally wanted to cut $22 billion out of the budget. The Democrats only wanted to cut $4 billion. Well, now we're just going to get along and do a compromise of $9 billion so that we only kind of really fuck all those people over. And this just goes over to the Republican mindset of, and I've heard this talking point before, well, look at all the fat people on SNAP. Look, you know what? If you cut down, and I believe I heard this from Louis Gohmert, oh, well, look at all the fat people. If we just reduce their food benefits, they won't be so fat.
The intellectual block of these people is enormous, and what they don't seem to get or don't want to get or refuse to get or don't care about is the fact that eating healthy and eating right costs more than eating shit and sugar and processed crap that is going to make you fat.
It costs less on health overall.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and overall, yes. If you take into account healthcare costs, eating healthy costs a lot less.
Well, going back to Goomert's point, right, is that he thinks that fat people are fat because they eat too much.
Mm-hmm.
And he thinks that cutting food stamps is going to help them not be so fat. Well, this shows how anti-science this guy is and how much of an idiot he is. Obesity is not cured by starving people. Actually, the less food that you get, the more your body's metabolism slows down and holds on to as much, fat as it can.
Absolutely,
and
you're right.
It burns it a lot slowly. And there's numerous health effects of, terrible health effects of actually eating less food. You can't concentrate. I know that when I miss a meal, I can't think. I can't focus. And that's just one of the health effects. And when it comes to children, it's even worse. Now, there was a University of Calgary study on hunger, on the effects, especially on children. And this is what this is who food stamp cuts will primarily affect. See, most of the people that are actually receiving SNAP benefits are families with small children, okay? And children and youth who experience hunger, according to this report, are more likely to have poorer health, and repeated exposure appears to be particularly toxic. And the questionnaire in this, for determining this, of course, is has the child ever experienced being hungry because the family has run out of food or money to buy food? Now, that's really kind of important because that's how they gauge what hunger really is, right? It's not like what Rush Limbaugh says, like, oh, you're hungry? Why don't you just go to the fridge?
Yeah, what an asshole. I mean, that's obviously coming from someone who's never experienced true hunger and the desperation of not having any food or access to food to eat. It's a complete lack of empathy.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that Rush Limbaugh's not hurting for food.
Yeah. I don't think he's ever experienced hunger. Yes, for obvious reasons. But getting back to the study, 32.9% of those who have ever experienced hunger were reported to be in poor health compared to 12.8% of those who had not. So if you experience hunger, you are less of a healthy person in your life. And you do poor. In fact, in education, for example, you have lower test scores, more behavioral problems, and then there are the socioeconomic effects, which are higher rates of being homeless and reduced economic opportunities. Now, Republicans love to say we have lots of economic opportunity, but SNAP, those people on SNAP, they're just lured into dependency on the government. They're not going to have any opportunity. You got to take it away. Yeah, but if you take it away, you're doing all this stuff to mostly children, and you reduce their ability to perform in school and to eventually go out there and actually escape that poverty.
Right.
They're doing exactly the opposite of what they say that they intend for children.
Right. I did a story not long ago about how there are so many teachers that are reporting that they're needing to supplement children's food at school, give them snacks at school every day because they're not getting enough at home. They're not getting adequate breakfast, or they're not getting a big dinner the night before that, keeps them full and focused, and they're suffering from stomach aches and headaches and lack of focus and, tiredness. And
they just can't perform. You can't perform like that.
Absolutely. And these stories always make me so angry because Democrats and Republicans are in Congress right now arguing about how much we should be cutting food stamps when no one ever thinks we shouldn't be cutting food stamps at all. Especially not right now. It's irresponsible to cut food stamps when so many people are out of work or underemployed, or, disabled and have dependent children who are trying to get through school. There's so many people that need it, and you're going to be destroying families. You're going to be making their lives so much harder and trying to get ahead so much harder for them by taking away these benefits. And it's going to hurt people that deserve the help. There's this fallacy that, it's just lazy people who refuse to get off their ass. But most of these people are working really hard, and they don't want to be in the position they're in right now. And they don't want to have to worry about food every day. How are you supposed to focus on making your life better and improving yourself if you're really worried that your children aren't going to be getting enough food, or if they can't afford fresh vegetables and fruits? It's not even about getting enough food. It's about getting the right food so that we can enrich our population and make sure that we are a country of healthy, well-functioning people that have the ability to really contribute to society and make the best of themselves, and thus making this whole community, this whole country, the best that it can be. We cannot be the best country in the world ever again if we are not enriching and giving our people the empowerment that they need with health and proper education and a roof over their heads. Without these basic necessities, how do we expect these people to progress?
Yeah, this is just an example of why the GOP is a fraud on both of its major fronts. Okay, like so right now the modern GOP, and this is not the history of the Republican Party by any means, but what we've had, post certainly post Reagan, even post really whenever Pat Buchanan and guys like this come in, is that the GOP has marketed itself as one, the Christian party, and two, the fiscally responsible party. And this is an example of why it's neither of those two things. Because one, what they're arguing,
this argument right now is an example of why it's neither fiscally responsible nor is it the Christian thing to do to cut off aid for hungry people who need it, who are there through no fault of their own.
Right. So whenever Jesus says feed the poor, and they say, hey, let's stop feeding the poor, then that's clearly not a Christian principle you're operating off of. I'm very thankful that I live in a place where my tax dollars can go to feed the hungry. I wish more of them went to that and less of them went to drone strikes. But
Amen.
And then the other thing there is, the money we save here is obviously going to be lost in the healthcare of the problems that this creates, as well as money that's lost by local vendors that sell this food and whatnot. It's the exact same argument as the fiscally responsible Christian party being against contraception as part of the healthcare system, because whenever you have babies being born out of wedlock or unwanted pregnancies, that costs a lot more money than subsidizing contraception. And it also puts kids in much worse situations, which any compassionate Christian should not, you would think would want to, do whatever they can in their power to stop. And that's really where these people are coming from is a place. I don't think that these are bad people wanting to do bad things. I do think there's a level of judgment in here that's obviously bad. But what they're coming from these are the human tendency to react to anecdotes. These are people who see anecdotes of people abusing the system. And obviously those people exist. I know some of those people. But I also know someone who has a PhD and a job where he's putting that PhD to use, but he has a large family that he couldn't afford to feed if he didn't get food stamps. Like, that's how much little money he makes with his PhD. He has to use those to feed his family. So, you can't legislate from anecdotes. You have to look at the data. The data for this view of EBT and SNAP especially, we can't paint with a broad brush. Maybe there are other welfare programs we can, talk about that are being overused. But when it comes to this one,
corporate welfare?
Certainly that. But when it comes to this one, the data is all there. This is doing far more good than it is harm, both on a human level and on a financial level. And being against it on, Christian and financial footing, you've got no footing, I should say. There's no argument to be made there.